Well, yeah, hey, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out to talk about the new album and, kind of what's going on in your world. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, before we get into the latest album, we're going on the 4-year anniversary of this pandemic, and I'm curious, how did you survive that time period, and how did it subsequently change you?
Well, the main thing for me, and I think I've heard other people say this, is we discovered some new technologies.
Yeah.
And so actually, I taught full time through it on Zoom. So I kept busy and hopefully helped my students get through it too, and give them something to do. So got through it and moved on. As far as how it changed me, I think it's just obviously fewer gigs and traveling and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
since I compose music too, it gives me a chance to focus on that. So,
So the latest album on Night City with the big band, talk to me about how this came about. How did you artistically put this together?
well, it's I'm very excited about this album. It's the first album of my big band music that I put out. I've done quartets, solo. I had an octet for a while, but the thing is, I've been writing big band music for over 40 years, and so it was kind of the idea is just a representation of my music through the years. I had the most recent piece was from last year, and then the earliest was from 1984. So, uh, and then the band itself, the players, we've been together playing as the Neal Kirkwood Big Band for about 10 years. But before that, I co-led a band called the Discovery Orchestra, a lot of the same players, and we rehearsed at the Musicians Union and getting together for a long time. So it's a long association, and really important for me to record not just my music, but the musicians playing in the band. Just wonderful people like Art Barron and James Zoller, and I could list them all. But it's great
Yeah.
group of me. Yeah,
Yeah. I just recently interviewed James. He has Kansas City connections. He's
I
wonderful.
listened to that. Yeah,
Yeah. Great cat. So talk to me a little bit about what you ultimately hope the listener gets from this album. I mean, I know big band albums always really infuse me with this just overwhelming sense of knowing that jazz is this mighty powerful force that I fell in love with in the beginning. But what ultimately do you want as the orchestrator of this album, the listener to get?
well, one of the metaphors I think of for music in general and my own compositions is a journey. So I like to think of the listening experience as a journey. So I know people listen a little differently nowadays. They don't necessarily listen from beginning to end, but I did try to make it the whole CD. It's over an hour, but kind of have an arc to it. So I hope people will take the time. But that's my main idea. As far as the orchestrations, I'm really interested in uh, the history of the big band. So it kind of not not retro at all, but I liked the qualities from like one piece is called Patty Harmon's Dreamland Ballroom, inspired by Chicago ballroom from the late 1920s. So I kind of imagined some of that era. Uh, one's a blues, and then some's very, very modern music. I study composition, so it's a wide range of, I wouldn't say styles, but approaches to composing. And and the other part is again, I have to get back to the band members. Every piece is written generally with an idea of a one or two people that will be soloing, or just the sound of a section, or the sound of the mutes for the same piece. Patty Harmon is, yeah, Patty Harmon actually was behind the invention of the Harmon mute. He financed it. He didn't invent it himself. So I used a lot of Harmon mutes. uh, so, and every piece has kind of a personal, not necessarily a story or narrative, but a meaning to me.
Yeah. So how did this journey not only into the music, but this fascination with big band, which you're going on 44 plus decades
Yeah.
of being involved with this, how did all of this become your focus and become who you are?
Well, it's kind of a funny journey to that. Um, Out of high school, my first year of college, I went to North Texas State for 1 year and met some great people, had a great time, learned a lot, but I didn't go back after 1 year. And my thinking was, yeah, it's all big bands. At that time, I didn't like, wasn't that interested in big bands. As a pianist, it's not much, could be kind of restrictive. So then I eventually lived in San Francisco and was playing jazz in small groups and not really thinking about the big band at all. But then I moved to New York and went back to school and studied composition, classical composition, and then started playing, their rehearsal bands and just so many musicians in New York were all trying to get together. And a big band's kind of a logical way to get a big group together. And then I did the BMI Jazz Composers Workshop in late '80s with Bob Brookmeyer and Manny Album and a bunch of great uh, composers, arrangers. And that got me writing because we'd have two concerts a year, and Bob would share his ideas with us. And so that got me kind of interested. And then I was thinking about how to bring some of those things I studied with a composer named Charles Jones, some classical influences, and then, like I say, going back to the more the traditional jazz and how to put that together. And then an interest in orchestration in general and the
Yeah,
challenge of like making the big band not sound like a big band all the time.
yeah,
So that's one of my challenges. The woodwind doubles, lots of flutes and clarinets, even oboe on one tune, um, the mutes and all these kind of sounds that can be unique, even though it's a ensemble. It's been mined for a long time.
yeah.
Mhm.
So what was the first show growing up? What was the very first one that blew you away that made you either wanna go after it harder or get on that stage and do it yourself?
Ooh, first one. Well, I do remember there's one memorable one, which is not, it's interesting. It's related to the Bay Area because I grew up in Santa Rosa, which is north of San Francisco.
Yeah,
And there was no jazz band in high school, but there was a junior college I got to play in. And there was a concert at Sonoma State, and it was Woody Herman Big Band. And then, but that wasn't what got me. It was the opening group was a violinist named Michael White. I don't know
okay.
if you've heard of it. He
Yeah,
played with
no.
John Andy and but in his band was a pianist named Ed Kelly, who was a Bay Area legend.
Yeah,
And just the way he approached the piano, I guess I'd never heard. I don't know. It was just so kind of open and free, and it just like kind of blew my mind.
yeah,
So that's one
yeah.
memory. Yeah.
Right on. Well, you've been at this for a long time. What is the thing that gets you motivated every day to compose, orchestrate, and to put all of this together? What is the motivating force for you?
Uh, it's like breathing for me. I have to do it. It's my way of expressing and seeing life through the music. Um, and also, I'm inspired by my students, honestly, because I teach and I write music for my student ensembles, and uh, so it's just sometimes I wake up in the morning. Might not be a tune. I might think about a couple of notes and how they're going to fit together.
Yeah.
So it's just becomes part of your life if you make it that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's your DNA. It's your right to life, so to speak.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. You've been around a lot of players, you know, you've been around a lot of different experiences throughout your career. What do you try to teach the younger generation? What do you try to lend to them that they'll understand about this world?
Um, Main first step is I try to get them to have fun
Yeah.
because it's not I don't try to beat in any kind of particular style or particular kind of music but I just try to have some fun. I teach at a community music school mostly, which is what we say ages 8 to 80, but most of my students are high school or younger,
Yeah.
and so it's inspiring to see sometimes that they discover something on their own, or if they hear something, they bring it in. I say, oh, let's do that. So I try to connect to their experience. Um, yeah, and then just try to come from where they are. I learn a lot from my students too. So where are you now? Well, let's try this and build gradually. Try to make it kind of organic. If I have an ensemble, like, oh, why don't you bring in an idea? Or some people actually write. I have a couple of my students are writing music, and we have different instrumentation, so it's always an interesting thing. You know, who's in the band.
Yeah.
So
So why do you love jazz?
that's a good question also. I know I fell in love with it when I was in high school. I was playing classical music. I think this is probably a typical story. Uh, you know, I love classical music and I took lessons, but it seemed somewhat limiting in a sense that, the notes are on the page. You've got to play it. If you don't practice enough, then you're not playing well. And something about improvising and being able to create in the moment was so liberating. And then the whole world of the personalities it was just, to me, like I was kind of in awe of all these people that were out there playing jazz. Like, yeah, the creativity, spontaneity of creating in the moment, and in the sense, and again, and playing with other people. So you're sitting at your piano in your practice room. Yeah, great. But
Yeah.
when I got together with my friends and we started all exploring together, it was so much fun too. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
So in the realm of big bands specifically, if you could go back in time and see one band, see how all of those pieces came together with your own eyes, where are you going?
Duke Ellington, uh, maybe the early '40s band, Jimmy Blanton, Ben
Yeah.
Webster.
Yeah.
Love to sit,
I
sit
get
at
it.
gigs.
Yeah.
You can hear the great recording, like the one from Fargo, North Dakota, was with that band. They're playing dance. They just play dances all the time. But
Yeah.
same kind of vibe.
I join you on that one for sure. So at the end of the day, everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, students, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Hmm. Well, that's an interesting question. Also, you're asking good questions. That's a um. I see. I don't actually see myself because I'm looking out. So I guess I see myself in the world around me. So um, the music that I create is a huge part of me, but also interacting, how I interact with other people, and hopefully I'm able to help other people get through things too,
Yeah.
through the music or through my teaching. Um, that's it. I don't actually sit out there and look back at myself too often.
Right. Yeah. No, I dig it. Yeah. So anyone out there that wants to pick up the new album, best place to go? Anything more about your world? Where's the best place for them to go?
Okay, well, the album will be on my Bandcamp page. It's also put out by Brooklyn Jazz Underground Records, so you can go to their website. You can get it there. Release date is February 23rd, so you can pre-order there on their website. And then we have our release concert on March 3rd, Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock here in New York City at the Third Street Music School, which is where I teach. They have a lovely auditorium. Uh, it's on 11th Street. It's the Third Street Music School on 11th Street, 235 East 11th. So that's our big presentation of this music to
Sure.
the public. Then I play my trio. I have a trio with Rob Garcia, who plays drums on the album, and Jeff Carney, bass player. Will be at Mesdro at the end of May. And then the big band will be back May 16th at Shapeshifter in Brooklyn.
Right on. Neil,
So,
thank you so much. Yeah, that's
um,
great. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking a minute out. This has been fascinating. Thanks for your time. Good luck with the album release.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. And before